Hey everybody, welcome back to Captain of Industry. I'm here with a little bit of an unconventional video for you. I'm actually going to be voicing this here after playing it, so that's known as like post commentary. I encountered some technical hardware hiccups with my microphone about 2 days ago, and let's just say one of my cables went bad. It caused my voice to basically sound like an underwater robo Charlie. Here's a sample.
Gonna boost all these. It's a situation where the nitrogen will go through here, and then what we want to do is we want to tell the pipe balancer to prioritize X. So if it can go through X, it will. But if it can't, then it will go through 0 or O, X's and O's, right? It'll go through O, and then it'll be here.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. Underwater Robo Charlie might be fun, but he's a little hard to understand. So anyway, I jumped on that pretty quick to fix it. Shout out to Amazon's 2-day Prime shipping, super fast. But I didn't want to wait 2 days to record. I didn't want to waste valuable time. I actually had a whole day where I had nothing to do but record, like just no chores around the house. That seems actually kind of rare these days. And so I didn't want to waste it. So I recorded anyway, and I figured I'd just voice it afterwards. So anyway, if you're hearing me now, everything's fixed and we can keep going as normal. So I'll be showing you footage from building stuff and trying to talk you through what I'm doing. If you have any questions at all about anything, drop them in the comments and I'll address those questions during a future video once you guys catch up to me, I promise, okay? My pinky's out. You can't see it, but it's a pinky promise, okay? It's right there. Anyway, so in this video, we're tackling the setup for fertilizer, amongst many other things. I've also come to realize that there's also a hiccup with this advanced diesel setup. Basically, the way the game works is like everything is so connected, right? Every resource is sort of tied into other resources requirements. And so if I ever run out of oil, basically like every other resource that's at the later parts of that chain will just shut down. The whole setup doesn't really function as needed. And the byproducts of future production also create a shortage elsewhere, right? So oil is super important. Oil is going to get addressed, but the resource I'm actually talking about here is ammonia. This same thing with everything being backed up can happen with a shortage like oil, or it can also happen if you have too much of something at the end of the chain, because then processing future stuff shuts down as well, right? So ammonia was shutting down a lot of stuff because it was full in these tanks. And that's why we're gonna get fertilizer going in this video. Likewise, we're now also gonna be making far more fuel than we're using. And so I'm now going to designate fuel to be also used to make rubber, because fuel was also slowing down our production here as well. I needed to also install a flare, unfortunately, just in case this all happens again. I don't want fertilizer stopping because diesel's full. I don't want everything else stopping because we're full on ammonia. So this flare is gonna go when it's needed. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, this thing will light up. It makes me sad every time, but it's just something that's there as a just in case. We don't really use it that much. We're using fuel to make rubber by splitting the pipe here as it comes down the hill. And it's going to lead all the way over here into another rubber maker, which has the formula basically in the recipe for diesel plus sulfur to make rubber here too. So now we're able to use the naphtha plus the sulfur to make rubber and the diesel. And we should have no shortage of rubber going forward because of that. Hopefully this also provides an adequate exit, if you will, for the diesel fuel so that I don't have to burn that. So for the fertilizer setup, first thing I need to do is redirect the nitrogen, because we're going to be deleting this distant storage over here to make room for fertilizer. And so I went ahead and deleted the pipes in the tank, and then I implemented a pipe balancer behind the nitrogen storage so that we can still burn away excess supply. Because if I don't do that, still, if the nitrogen fills up, then all of the air separators will stop running, and as a result of that, of course, they won't make the O2, and since they're not making O2, we won't be able to get fuel over on this side, which could potentially ripple problems everywhere else. So yeah, we want to keep that fuel production going. It's also a useful thing to trade, so we're going to be probably trading that a lot too. So the first thing I needed to do, of course, I redirected the nitrogen, put this pipe balancer in, good to go. And after that was taken care of, I needed to direct the ammonia to the site. This process involves taking the planned ammonia pipe, which is partially underground, and connecting it over at the reserve tank on Oil Hill, which is what I'm calling it now. That will allow ammonia to pass all the way over to the other side of the island into the fertilizer's ammonia reserve tanks. That, of course, goes right alongside the fuel gas, which passes under this bridge, so we don't block trucks from accessing the port later. So with that out of the way, it's time to build the chemical situation. My approach to fertilizer is to build 4 chemical plants, 2 of which will be used initially, with the other 2 being built as red construction parts become available. The ammonia and nitrogen from these buffer tanks will, right here, will be directed with pipes into these facilities, along with water, which is pulled from a long pipe coming from this part of the agriculture area. I'm essentially tapping into water that makes it to the end of this line on this side to make the fertilizer. This many chemical plants should be making more fertilizer than we need, so we'll have it topped off all the time, and hopefully it won't use a whole lot of water because the fertilizer will be backed up and these things will just stop running, which is totally fine with me. To make sure I'm keeping up with the food, I've also added 3 additional farms over here by the copper area. It might be 2 additional. I don't remember which ones I've showed you, but there's farms way in the distance now over here. And in a future video, we're actually going to try, I think I can do this. It's probably not that hard. We're going to try to make all these farms truckless as well, because this is a lot of trucking. There's a lot of truck tasks that are going on, and I want to make all this stuff truckless as well. Once all the pipes are navigated, I'm going to flip on this process. 2 additional problems will turn up. Both problems end up hitting power, and my Unity gets massively restricted as power shuts down. My coal miners had completed the job that I left for them, and I hadn't realized it. I was focused on other stuff. I hadn't realized that they were done mining the coal that I designated for them, and they're just like sitting there doing nothing. So of course the whole colony had no coal eventually. I would quickly get them assigned to the task again, but it would take a very long time until they caught up with this like colony-wide coal shortage, even when I doubled the trucks assigned to it. Now the second issue though, was going to be more difficult to solve. You see, up until this point, I was producing enough water to sustain everything. Reserve tanks were filled, so were all the pipes. I wasn't really worried about water. But with the addition of chemical plants and later the electrolysis, more on that in a bit, I was now in a water deficit, and I quickly caught on to that. Like, that was starting to deteriorate. Every time I add something that takes water, I take a look at my reserve tanks to see if they're going down now instead of, staying full. And adding chemical, adding that kind of stuff, it did tip the scales. I also started to notice that the groundwater was getting depleted a little bit more than usual, so that was probably a good sign that I have a water deficit now. One place where that's a really big problem, though, is my power system, because my entire power system relies on water and coal, and we were short on both of them now, so my entire power grid shut down. That was fun. Here's the steps I did to address that. First, I took some of the red parts I had, and I started the process of converting low pressure steam into power. This is set up right alongside the existing power system and allows us to use the quote-unquote waste product of the high-pressure turbines to create additional power. This setup is being completed right here, and when it's done, it will effectively double our power capacity without any additional inputs. My hope was that this would lead to less usage of water and coal, as the low pressure would provide power too, driving less need for the high pressure turbines with balancing enabled. Something that eventually, after a long time and one additional step, turned out to be totally true. So the second step I mentioned is pulling more water. Groundwater and rainwater have been enough so far, but not anymore. So I'm going to pump seawater. And in order to effectively use that, we need to use these thermal desalinators. These machines take seawater and heat it up using high or low pressure steam, but in our case, we're going to be using high pressure steam to create clean water that we can use. They will also create brine from this exchange, which initially I'm just going to dump back into the sea. There's no pollution for doing that. I mean, it came from the ocean anyway. I decided to use the underground pipe that I designated for steam for this task. So remember, we had those 4 pipes. They go underneath the colony. One of them, I've been saying for a while, this is a steam pipe. Well, this is the reason for that steam pipe. We're going to be using that to transport steam over to the desalinators. All these new pipes that I'm talking about are being routed in front of all the food places, and they're all stacked on top of each other, so it looks really nice and clean. The water from this process is directed through a pipe that goes under the existing pipe network near the food centers, and then cuts across the parts and maintenance production to meet up with the water network piping that we've already had. I've also been redoing a lot of the pipes around the island to allow for easier travel for excavators. And so many of the former high pipes that were above the ground are now at ground level with a bridge over top of them instead. This water pipe that's running along this part here ducks underneath this new bridge and heads over to these reserve tanks that we've had for a long time. There are 3 new tanks right next to these, though, that have been made specifically for this seawater conversion supply. Now, that supply is directed 3 ways. The first way is to the top of Rainwater Hill, so that it can enter into circulation and storage with the rainwater, which is connected to everything from power to farms. So basically, this just puts it into circulation alongside it as if it was rainwater. The second is a pipe that directs the water supply immediately to the power center, taking pressure off the ground pumping stations, which are typically basically the groundwater is typically taking the lead in supplying the power stations with power. So we can take the pressure off of those just a little bit there too. And then the third one is directed into the original water reserve that's been sitting here already right next to this, which leads to the people in town and also to farms. So effectively, I'm just allowing the seawater that's been converted to have its own reserve tanks next to the rest of the water system, but also be redirected everywhere else water goes. I think that's probably a good way that's going to be effective, at least for a little while. And with those 2 steps and a lot of waiting, our power would be restored and stabilized, allowing all the other places and people to get back to work as expected, at least for a little while. I was still not getting quite enough coal into the power area to properly power everything continuously. There were still little blackout periods because of coal. So this means that dividing the single coal mine that we have with trucks was not cutting it anymore. We've outgrown that, right? So it's the time of relying on trucks to power everything is over. It's time to tap into the other coal supply across the map. And this time, I'm not going to rely on trucks for that power. So I started this after the ramp that I designated had finished. It took a little bit, but they finally finished this ramp. And with the excavators and trucks working to flatten this out, I've placed a row of storage tanks here at the top of the ramp. And then I spent over 100 gold construction parts and a lot of rubber creating a super long conveyor that would lead all the way to the power center from here, passing over the rainwater collectors really nice and cleanly, but also splitting near the central ramp in the island here so that I could have another coal delivery network node right here near where it needs to be. Trucks can now be stationed at this coal tank supply and deliver coal around the island where they need to go to. So this effectively just adds a whole bunch more robustness and redundancy to our coal network. And I think it's going to make things a lot more stable. With this up and running, we should not have to worry about coal at all for the near future. So with all that done, power is purring again. It's all going as expected. Everything is good to go. Now, after a while, the trucks finished expanding the area near the oil tanks enough for me to finally get the second cargo dock in place, just in time also for us to take advantage of the new sulfur mine and sawmill that I've discovered while exploring the map. There's also a second oil rig that I would find very late in this play session that I also now planned to go ahead and upgrade, but I haven't actually had a chance to do that yet. Having both of these running, though, and both of these cargo yards running and the storage is upgraded, is going to speed up my exploration now because I no longer have to have the main ship go ahead and do this kind of stuff. And this is especially true with a few more ship upgrades coming later. Probably the bridge one. I think probably the bridge one will be done in the next video. Probably. So with all that done, things are stable enough to progress into tier 3 needs for citizens. They are now requesting household goods. And for those, I'm going to need glass. I'll also need glass if I want to build the larger trucks, as that research has completed, and I want to get those larger trucks on the road as soon as possible because they have a much larger carrying capacity.
Greetings, everyone. It's Captain of Industry. My name is Charlie. And today we're going to get going with tier 3 stuff.
I'm kidding. I just wanted you to hear that ridiculousness. So for glass, we're essentially looking at a similar ending workflow to steel and iron, where we have something molten and we do something to it to make the end product. Getting to that molten stage, however, now requires more individual resources than anything we've mixed so far, at least when it comes to getting the ratios right for it. To start the glass making process, we first need to source 3 required resources and 1 optional one if we want things to work out better, which I do. We'll need sand, limestone, salt, a new resource for us, and in my recipe of choice, acid will also be added as well, as it tidies up the ratios for us the best. So let's go in order. And I'll bring you back to real time now, so hopefully that whole commentary thing worked out for you. So, 4 resources for this, right? Now you might think that sand is the easiest one to get because it's like everywhere, right? And you're kind of right? If I take a look at the layers, there's sand everywhere, right? But the problem is there's also a lot of land that I'm going to use everywhere, and this is all on land I'd like to build on. Plus, it's not that deep. I mean, there's a couple layers here, but it really doesn't go that deep. Yes, we can get some of this, and we will, but the primary place I'm going to be getting sand, if just straight up, is going to be over here. This area is not being used, and there's an awful lot of sand here I could get. It's also a lot deeper, and there's a lot of rock, which brings me to another main resource for getting sand. There's a lot of rock here too. Lots of land and lots of area here that I don't intend to build on unless you flatten it. So we could just mine all of this up to this belt, mine all of it out over to here. It would work, and we're going to be factoring in that, putting it in this container here, and kicking it, as you can see, after it is processed. So these crushers will make the rock into gravel, then send it to the next one, which will make the gravel into sand, and then it just gets popped into these containers. So that takes care of sand. Now limestone is conveniently located right over here. And as we mine out the limestone and get deeper, we're also getting sand there too. So again, we are going to get some of the sand, but it's not really like intentional to get all this area, all this sand in this area. So limestone, very easy to get, very close by. It's going to get delivered to these tanks, which then in turn pops it into this machine over here. And I know this is already built, but rather than just putting footage over top of this and taking the time to edit that, I'm just going to walk you through what I've got here, okay? I'm really sorry about this. Hopefully it makes sense. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll absolutely answer them in the future video. I'm going to skip over salt for a second and take a look at acid. Now, the acid is just the same acid machine we've had running here already, the same mixer that is going to be distributing acid across the map over for the copper. But copper takes priority, and that's because that is essential for maintenance. So acid will always go here first, but if it can't, it will then pop into this pipe, and there it goes. It's now being placed into these mixers, and these mixers are going to make 18 every 20 seconds, which translates to 54 glass mix every 60 seconds, which just happens to be twice what this will process, 27 every 60 seconds. So the ratio is basically 1 of these for every 2 of these. Yeah. So these blast furnaces will take the glass mix it with coal, of course, always, and then out comes the molten glass into these machines here. Yeah. Now, at the moment, we're actually full of glass, so this is not running because these 6 containers have full glass now. Great, we're going to be using that. We have to. All right, last resource then, right? We've walked through all those, is salt. So, new resource. How are we getting salt, right? Well, I could show you the recipe, but instead, let's just say the obvious. We are near the sea, okay? And we've been pumping seawater for a bit, and that's, salt water. And so these suckers here, right, they kick out brine. And up until now, we've just been essentially just dumping the brine, right? So instead of dumping the brine always, let's prioritize with this pipe balancer, sending the brine somewhere else, right? And so this pipe goes all the way over here, goes underneath this bridge, gets integrated into this little pipe network. It then goes all the way through here, ducks underneath this bridge, then this new bridge, then this new bridge, and it leads us to 2 of these. These are evaporation ponds. Now, there are 2 different variations of these. There are the one that doesn't take power, and there's one that does take power. And the one that takes power is more expensive to build. It does take 50 of the red parts as opposed to 30. I've got 2 of these built, and they do take power, but they're also more effective, right? So it takes more labor too, as you can see. So you can see the different ratios there and sort of how they compare, but this one with the heat produces a lot faster. It's a lot more efficient to run that. So that's what we're doing here. All of that gets processed, and salt is the exclusive byproduct. and brine is the exclusive input. So no waste, right? Absolutely nothing there. Salt then gets moved all the way through this belt, wraps around these pipes, which didn't used to be buried. In fact, the sulfur belt is now entirely buried in here. I don't even know quite where it is. I don't think I can click it either. It's gone for good. Yeah, this pipe is barely clickable too. Anyway, I probably had, yeah, I had this marked still. Well, okay. If you guys want to dump it right here, though, I'm cool with that. Really, I am. Go for it. Anyway, so it wraps around here and gets into the mixer. And there you go. So now we're full on everything, mostly because we're full on glass, right? So we need to start spending the glass. And what we can do with the glass and spending it is we can come over here and we can get a few of these trucks. These are the big boy trucks, right? The really big ones. And I'm just going to get that stuff like queued up so I can get a bunch of these trucks. We also now have access to the large excavator, and I can probably queue a few of these too, although we are going to reach our limits here. Now, for research, I don't know exactly like what's most important and everything, but I will say it's probably a great idea to get Research Lab 4 just so I can get more vehicles. I think that's probably a great idea. I've also researched the Bridge 2 upgrade and the ship engine upgrade. And that stuff there's too. I'm going to get digestate processing. I'm going to get the research. I'm going to get fuel station 2. I don't know if this is something I'll use. I mean, it does reduce pollution, which is good. And it's something that's a natural progression here, it looks like, from the wastewater treatment, which I want to start with very soon, because I can then use the wastewater with chlorine and sand to create clean water. Kind of nice. So we'll try that out too, and then we can get the large seawater pump queued up as well. And then there's this fuel gas synthesis, which looks kind of interesting. I can place a couple of those electrolyzers, which I said I would get to eventually. Let me show you all the way over here. And so I've made these 2 electrolyzers, right? Because we get periods of time where we don't have enough ammonia. That's not right now, but we had periods of time where we didn't have enough. And so to help supplement it, I added 2 of these. They literally take water, create 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. And that's all they do. And then they're going to send the hydrogen. And by the way, I love the labels. Like there's literal labels here on these. None of the other buildings have that, but these do. And I love that. They're cool. Anyway, so hydrogen comes around into these 2 chemical plants. And instead of the fertilizer recipe, we're using this one. Just mix the nitrogen with hydrogen and get ammonia. And then that ammonia comes out and it gets kicked into this system right here. Now, it looks to me like I have missed... Oh, I did. I missed this pipe right here. So I want to get you hooked up to this too, and we'll just pop it. It's the top pipe. Yeah, I need to be in the top pipe. So we'll just pop it in like right here, I guess. It's fine. And so this has a place to go now. You can push the ammonia out of here. So we'll see it work, hopefully. Yeah, it'll just fill the pipe. We don't have enough because we're full, right? And then, of course, this is going to be full because the fertilizer's all done. So, and that's okay. This stuff can stop if it's not happening. That's completely fine. If there's nowhere for oxygen to go, just stop working. That's completely fine with me. So there we go. We've got, I've kind of walked you through everything that happened. There was a lot of nuances, a lot of jokes. Oh man, so many jokes. You guys missed all the puns. All right, I'm really sorry about that, but Underwater Robo Charlie just is not entertaining to listen to. I mean, maybe it is. If you guys, seriously, this will be super embarrassing, but if you want like a raw recording session of me just like doing this last episode where I did all these things here, right? Like I'll post this one unedited, like where I put the evaporation ponds and everything. If anybody wants that, just to hear what it sounds like the entire time, just let me know in the comments and I'll post that unlisted for your listening pleasure. It's disgusting. Anyway, this ship has 240 construction parts. That's going to go to this brand new oil rig that I just discovered. So we're going to go ahead and deliver that. Off you go. And that's going to open up and get us the availability for more oil, which is going to be great. Now this ship isn't doing anything. Well, never mind. Off it goes. Does it work over here too? This ship isn't doing anything. It will once the oil is unloaded, then it'll take off. Yeah. I'm also thinking about upgrading these ports because this one's already upgraded. It's got 4 ports here. And so we could go in and add more modules. Whoops, no, here. We can add 2 more modules if we want to there, which seems kind of cool, especially with the oil. I think I kind of want a bigger oil one. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get one more oil one. We're not full, so maybe I shouldn't build it yet. I probably shouldn't build it yet. We're definitely not full here, but if this thing starts to fill up for some reason, then I can drop this one in here too, because this is a cool port. And then this one here is pretty small. I don't know if I really need to upgrade it at all. This one's taking wood because we found that sawmill, and it gets delivered into these 2 storages. And then this is, of course, all oil, but it's not being exported. And I kind of wish there was an oil pipe here that would take it over to export. I could theoretically get away with like converting this into an oil pipe, but I need to route this. Yeah, I need to route this. So I want truck exports. It's, here's what I'll do. Yeah, here's what I'll do. I'm going to assign one of the big trucks to this. Okay. And I'm going to assign you a route that takes you to here. Okay. And you should be getting it now, right? And actually, I'm going to assign that other storage tank over here. I'm going to assign you a big boy truck too, because I've actually made 2 of these with glass, right? We can quick deliver this resource too. The big guy trucks, these ones are awesome. I just want to follow them. Is there a way to like follow the truck? Like go in follow mode? Doesn't look like it. Anyway, so they're clearly much larger. There you go, right side by side. Clearly much larger than the other truck, right? 20 carrying capacity, and this one has a 40 carrying capacity. So now we can get deliveries from the cargo station to drop it in there. It's not truckless, and I can probably get this. Yeah, like, can we just, will this work? Like, what if I went up like this? I really do want this to be truckless. If I go across you, no, I want you to be up high, like in the sky. Okay, that's actually fine. Yeah, directly above this. This is good. And then we can put you in. Like half of my time playing this game is fiddling with where pipes are. Does anyone else have that same thing happen to them? And then you end up just like compromising and saying, "Fine, right here's this is good," and then you build it over top of. There it goes, and then you build it over top of. No, not quite, not yet. Are you already tier 3? No, you're not. I mean, I can just go right next to you, right? I wanted to go above though. Can't you just let me be above this pipe? You're so stubborn. Fine, be stubborn. See if I care. I do. I care a lot, actually. Aw. Right here. Here's what we'll do. Now what are you gonna do? It's gonna be stubborn forever. I guess I can go this way, but I can't get underneath this. That is the other problem. Is I won't be able to get underneath this bridge unless I make it a bigger bridge. Which I could do. We could make it a bigger bridge just to get that, just to get away from that. I'll look at that. I think I'm gonna look at that afterwards. This can be. I'm gonna cancel this, but like right now that truck delivery is probably okay, but I definitely want. Honestly, what I should be doing is just having no oil come here, right? All the oil should be delivered over there, but then both of these cargo rigs can't get the oil, you know. They do have 2 compartments for this though. Ooh, they can actually bring back twice as much. That changes everything. We're building this. Absolutely. I didn't think that would happen, but it does. And then we can send it just like this. That's fine. Because it takes a while for it to ship out. But adding this extra thing here means that the ship itself gets extra capacity. Okay. Sweet. It's very cool. Okay, so in that sense, like maybe I don't want to have any oil here at all, right? Maybe I just go double wood, because I do need a lot of wood here. Another thing you guys missed, I'm sorry, is that I've made these 3 here. dedicated to tier 1 parts because I was having a hard time keeping up with it. So these 3 are only making tier 1, and they come out of a belt here and they go into these storage units. Eventually we can stockpile them, but these 3 are the ones that are doing that. And I've repurposed some of these storages to help compensate. So you'll see that the iron is no longer at the bottom. It actually dips up and comes up to level 1 here. So it comes up around, and then it drops through here like this into these 3 areas. And then we have wood that gets delivered as well, but this one is missing wood. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now, just kind of, do it with you guys. So this conveyor is gonna just come over here and be like that. I'm just leaving as much space in here as I can for trucks to get closer, but this is gonna allow the wood to come out of this storage, which has a P2 importance of keeping it full. And now it can spread out and go to these. And so now we'll get like a whole bunch of construction parts coming out of this one too. And now we don't have to use trucks for this. It's all wood. This is still trucks, of course. But the positive thing is the wood is coming directly from this port almost always. I do have a few trucks that could do tree harvesting. Like maybe I could have one of the big trucks do it. But there's another research called a tree harvester that we can add. And it says that there is nothing that can harvest trees faster than this machine. That's a bold statement. Make sure you assign plenty of service trucks to it to keep up with the amount of harvested wood. So we can go ahead and look at that too. There is a lot of wood on the island still. I mean, it's not going to last long, of course, but there's a lot here. And I do wish you could plant more trees, but now that we have that sawmill, we can just get it from there. That's fine. And then you can see there's extra oil over here. Now we've got 2 shifts assigned to this, which isn't bad. 38 available workers, 3 shifts on this one. I feel like we're just going to make 3 shifts on both. I know that's going to cost me a lot of unity, but I think it's worth it. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just have this. Let's use the wood to buy concrete because we're really low on that somehow. And then I'm also going to use the rubber to buy the wood because I have a lot of rubber. And then I want to also find somebody who I can trade glass to because I have a lot of glass now, right? So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Let's have the ship come back home because they can't go anywhere. Okay, so we started with a heavily edited episode. It took forever to make. Sorry about that. And I now leave you with completed glass coming out of here, right? And of course it's stalled out now because glass is full. We have so much of it now. Don't know what to do with it at all. And then we also have these tanks. This is for slag. And you can see the jobs are piling up because this guy just keeps putting this back and forth. Damn it. Don't do this. Just take it out of here and bring it somewhere else. Okay? Is that why my jobs are really high up? This is going to do the same thing, isn't it? Okay, don't do this. And yep, we don't want that. And then this is just for coal and we do imports. Okay? Okay. Good talk. I hope that's good talk right there. Yeah. And then we could turn off all the imports for all of these as well, which I did. This is an export and there's no import here. Okay, good. Maybe there's something here, but I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Guys, I'm going to leave you here. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. I hope you like this video. Leave me comments. Tell me how silly this is. We have digestate processing finishing up. And for the most part, everything is solid. There's still some random car somewhere that's not doing something, and that's what this is representing. But somewhere we'll fix it. 40 months of food supply looks decent. I think these are all full, right? So as our population grows, this number gets lower and lower just by the buffer. And I'll need to add more of these, but then trucks will have to bring it, which is not what I want. Unless they cannot go here where cannot go there. Damn. You can put them over here, but it's still trucks unless I bring this belt. Unless there it is again. Unless I bring this belt clear across and start delivering here, which is possible. I have to redo how these pipes are, but that is possible. I may look at doing that. Very possible. Okay. I'm going to leave you here, though. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.